Whether you do it on your side or not, we'll see what happens. So, thank you so much for being here. I hope it wasn't too short notice. I know I did share the date in advance, well in advance, but sometimes if you don't get a reminder, there's a lot of things to remember in life. And even I last night I forgot momentarily. I did remember all along, but suddenly going to sleep last night, I was like, oh, we have Patreon Sanga in the morning. Um, I just got back from the Bahamas on yesterday, early in the morning, 2 a.m. Got back from the Bahamas. We had a really, really beautiful retreat there at the Shivananda Ashram. Um, I wish that more of you could have been there. And I think that some from that retreat will probably be joining our Patreon group because we really had an unexpectedly deep connection in just 3 days that we were there, 3 days and 4 nights. So it's definitely reminded me of the power of retreat. Sometimes we think, well, what's 3 days? It seems too short to experience anything meaningful. But I also felt that the people that came had this attitude of embracing and absorbing everything possible in that short space of time, and it really was so much more full than you would imagine. It's something I'm thinking about a lot recently about mindset. It's anyone that works in industries that speak about these things a lot, it's old news. But just this morning I got a text from the lovely lady who has been organizing the event at Stanford University this evening. And with only like less than, I think, 10 days to go, she moved the venue from a free student, a room that students can hire for free, and it could probably fit 200 people, to an auditorium with 600 seats. And additionally, there was a lot of costs. And I was thinking, oh, this is a crazy idea. And, I don't think anyone's going to come. She just texted me this morning that it's completely filled. And I was really just very humbled and thinking about the power of attitude to get the most from an experience or to allow things to bloom in an unexpected way. Sometimes people, Raghunath, for any of you that take part in Wisdom of the Sages, he talks about Krishna miracles, believing that truly anything, that we can imagine and beyond is possible with the intervention of the Lord. And somebody that I really, really love and deeply treasure in my life that I wanted to speak about today, she used to say Krishna magic, that allow the Krishna magic to unfold. And so today is the birthday of someone called Yamuna Devi, who was very, very instrumental in my life in a particular time. And as it is with people who impact your life in a deep way, even if it's for a short space of time, the impact of that goes on for many, many years to come. So she passed away in 2011, or actually, I think it was very beginning of 2012. No, December 2011. And a long time has passed, but I wanted to speak about her today since it's her birthday, and I'm really thinking that it's amazing that the concert ended up getting moved to this day. From it was going to be on Saturday the 18th, and it got moved to this day. And seeing as she's been so instrumental in my inspiration and choice to try to pursue this path of bhakti yoga, I feel like it's very apt to be doing something, really meditating on her. I'm just going to open up the chat because I wasn't seeing your message. Yes, Sydney, Krishna winks for sure. So I wanted to do something that I don't do very often with you and show you a slideshow this morning. We're going to do our meeting a little bit shorter just to allow time to, well, I'm heading off to the temple after this, to the Silicon Valley temple. His Holiness Radhanath Swami is actually arriving there to give a talk, and it's very last minute, but he's suddenly appeared. I have this picture here of Narad Muni. Some of you may be familiar with Narad Muni. He always just appears strumming his veena and singing the glories of the Lord. So I was thinking that Radhanath Swami is sort of like Narad Muni sometimes. He just drifts in when you don't expect. And Ramit, these were the cards I was going to give out on the retreat, so I'm definitely going to send you one. And if anybody else would like one, I will send you also a link to an easy, I'm thinking of a Google form where you can fill out your mailing address because these are very cute and I made them for the retreat goers and they arrived like 3 days after I left, so they got delayed. So let's see if this works to show you this slideshow. Second. I saw so many things during the COVID time when we were doing Zoom all the time, impressions of people pulling up a screen share and being like, "Oh, just 1 second," all these noises people would make. Okay. Ah! Oh, oh, I'm not the host. Nana, you have to make me the host again. That's why. Great. Thank you. Okay, can everyone see that? Yes? Okay, great. Wonderful. So I wanted to introduce you, if you hadn't heard before, of Yamuna Devi. She's in this image behind A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Some of you, I think most of you are familiar with Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, if not all. And I'm sure you've heard his name, even if you don't know that much else about him. But I'm assuming most of you do know about him. He Well, this slideshow is not about him, but it actually is about him too, because he's so instrumental in the life of Yamuna Devi, how she became Joan, who grew up in I think in Montana, first in Montana, then in Oregon, and then became Yamuna Devi, Yamuna Dasi, at a particular moment in her early life, in her 20s. Actually, came from um, she came from Montana to San Francisco. That was the first place that well, actually, she encountered him first in New York when she came to attend her sister's wedding. Her sister Janaki was one of the very, very early disciples of Srila Prabhupada in New York, and they had a wedding in actually the same place that my husband and I had our legal wedding. Um, Actually, I don't know if they did it in that room, but it was anyway in one of the buildings there. I think it might have been in the apartment that Prabhupada was staying in. So she had received this handwritten letter from her sister saying, "Please come for my wedding in New York." And, with not that much warning, not much notice, I think, can't remember if she got a flight or some combination of Greyhound buses, but she went to New York as the only family member to attend her sister's wedding. And she had said they met this Swami and they'd gotten involved with him. And so her first encounter with the Swami, she said he was serving out a meal for everyone that he had personally cooked. And at that time, she was following a macrobiotic diet, which is extremely you could say minimalist. There's a lot of things that they would not have, especially things like sugar or I think most fats. And he was serving out this meal cooked with ghee and, a lot of spices. And at the end, she said she had resolved in her mind, "I'm never coming back here," because she was just like, the food is just it's not aligned with my current philosophy of, how I wish to eat, and so I'm not going to come back here. I'm finding it. I can't see my cursor to share to admit someone into the group anyway. I'm just going to have to keep going. Um, so then at the end, he offered her this. Some of you know what a gulab jamun is. It's a sweet that is like it's like the whole of a donut soaked in syrup, and it's very delicious. But he said he offered her one. He said, "Please take this." And she was like, "No, no, no, it's fine, it's fine." She could see the sugar syrup dripping from it. And he said, "No, no, no, you have to." And she was saying, "No, no." And then finally she acquiesced and she put it in her mouth and she said it was just an explosion of sugar. And then she was really like, "I'm not coming back." But she said something really touched her heart. And she realized that this is a very special person, and something about this world, this philosophy of what they're following is very special too. So for her sister's wedding, um, Swamiji, as they called him at that time, he asked her to help him in the kitchen to cook the feast for the wedding because he was going to be cooking it all on his own. And he taught her how to make samosas. And the first lesson she said he taught her was about cleanliness, because anything she would do, if she would wipe her forehead with her hand because it was summertime in New York and they were cooking in a very small kitchen in the Lower East Side apartment, he would say, "Okay, now wash your hands." At one point, she said, "Can I go out and have a cigarette?" And he said, "When you come back, wash your hands, wash your hands." He just kept saying, make sure everything is very, very clean. This is a very key principle when cooking for an offering in the Bhakti Yoga process. So she had never encountered this sort of these kitchen codes before, kitchen philosophy, and it was very intriguing for her. And she slowly became intrigued by this person. So let's see if I can. Oh, it's also not allowing me to move forward on the slideshow. Hang on. This is a bit weird. I'm sorry, I've not done this before. Okay, let me try again. Maybe I'll do it like this for now and I'll. So this is Yamuna Devi on a walk with Prabhupada. And this was at um, the home of, oh, actually, this looks like this is in, actually, I think somebody has superimposed Vrindavan onto this picture. This is at the home of John Lennon. So at one point, after she had accepted this path and accepted the name of Yamuna Dasi, eventually Prabhupada sent her and a few others to London to start a temple there. And in that difficult time, they met the Beatles, not something that is an everyday occurrence for sure. They definitely had an intention, they had an idea to meet the Beatles, but what they didn't know was that on their regular chanting evenings, they would go to different art spaces and sort of places where you could share music and other types of presentations. So there was this place called the Arts Lab, and they would go there and chant, and they didn't realize that George Harrison and maybe some of the other Beatles had come in incognito one evening and had heard them chanting, and ever since they'd been intrigued to meet them. So at one point, John Lennon was saying, why don't the Krishnas come and stay at my estate for a while, since you don't have a big property to live and you want to host your guru in a nice way. So they were staying at his estate called Tittenhurst, and there they would go on these beautiful walks with Prabhupada. I'm sorry, this is a very awkward. I think I'm going to stop doing this slideshow because I can't figure out a way to show it without I have to escape and stop sharing every time I want to change the slides. All right. I will share it with you another time, perhaps. That would be really lovely to do. But I'll keep speaking a little bit more about her. Um, the first time that I met her, I was a child, and I didn't really know much about her, I guess. You know, when you're a child, you kind of have a very limited data that has been input so far. I thought she was just a nice friend of my parents. But I was told a little bit more, and enough that I felt very touched when there was a festival happening and I was doing a little dance performance on the stage, and my mom told me that she was in the audience watching. And I had this little diary that I used to write sometimes for school. The teacher would get us to write about what happened on our weekend, and then she would reply to us in our book. So I wrote that I did a performance and that she had been watching me, and I thought that was something special, I guess, because my parents had told me that it was. And then I next became aware of her as the voice that sings the prayer that, at least in ISKCON temples, when the curtains open for the altar in the morning for the ritual worship to take place, this beautiful recording is played. Yes, Elka, I can share the slides on Patreon. I'll definitely share the images, or I'll do my best to do that. Maybe I can share the file to download. So when the curtains open, this beautiful song plays. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. The song is an excerpt from the Brahma Samhita, which was excavated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it speaks of the beauty of Sri Govinda, of Krishna, and of the divine realm. And it was recorded with the assistance of George Harrison. One second, Naina, I'm going to make you the host again because now I'm seeing people coming in. If Naina is still here. They recorded it with George Harrison, and Yamuna ended up singing the lead vocals. In fact, George loved her singing so much that he said to her, I would, I would love to make a solo album with you, like sort of produce an album for you if you would be interested, because you have a very compelling voice." And she didn't consider it for very long, and she turned him down. She said, I'm sorry, but I feel that it would take me away from my service. Her service at the time was, she was the only pujari or priest for the London temple. So morning, noon, night, throughout the entire day, she was busy serving on the altar. She would cook. She would make beautiful dresses for the divine images of Shri Radha London Ishwara. And yeah, she turned him down. I always find that so amazing that you would turn down one of the Beatles to record a solo album. And it's been something that I've often thought of on my own journey of what I've been doing, recording and so on. I often contemplate her rejection at that time. And, when opportunities have come my way, it's been a reason to pause and think, well, should I do this or should I not? And what I've often concluded is that for her, the ultimate thing was pleasing her guru. And it was really about the mentality of it. Why am I doing this? If it's not for the right reason, with the right intention, even if it will bring fame or acclaim, it's just not worth it. It's not interesting enough. But nevertheless, she had a close relationship with George Harrison, and he would often visit the temple. Once they finally got the temple, they moved from John Lennon's estate and they had their own place in London. And he would visit, and he particularly loved her cooking. And she would make a dish that he really loved. which later became, quite famous when they've had anniversaries for the London Temple, for the installation of those beautiful deities. They cooked this as a signature dish. It was a baked rice pudding or kheer um, that had a rhubarb topping. I don't know if you all know what rhubarb is. It's not grown in all parts of the world, but it's a very quintessentially English thing, particularly. And so kheer is a traditional Indian dish, and she created this beautiful um, combination of the two. And that was one of his favorite things. And if he would call and say, is the program happening today, that he would say, who is cooking? And I hope she's going to make that baked kheer. And then, he would come and eat with the devotees. My stomach's rumbling when I speak about that. I hope you didn't hear that. um, so nevertheless, even though they didn't make the solo album, they recorded this Govindam song. And of course, they recorded also My Sweet Lord with him, and they sang some vocals for that. When you hear them singing in the background, Hare Krishna. So anyway, when I finally became conscious of these things, then I saw her as someone who was like a celebrity. And I didn't imagine that I would have a personal relationship with her later in my life. But when I was around 18, we were in Vancouver, and I guess a little bit of backstory is that my mom lived in the ashram at the London Temple for about 10 years when she was in her 20s. And at that time, Yamuna Devi and her companion Dinatarine Dasi, they were living in London as well. And as something that they wanted to do because they had been around for a long time, the women that lived at the temple at that time would go to their home on the weekends, and they would teach them different things about how to cook and how to perform different kinds of service, how to, things that they had learned from Srila Prabhupada. And so my mom knew them from a long, long time ago. And so we were in Vancouver for a family function with my mom's family, who are Canadian. And she heard that Dina Tarine was coming into town and was traveling the 3 or 4 hours north to a valley called Venables Valley in the Rocky Mountains, or also known as Sharanagati, where they lived, and that she would be needing a ride. Somehow, I don't know how she found that out, but she said, let's rent a car and let's drive her up there, and we can stay for 24 hours and, escape our family family function a little bit as well, because, family stuff can be a little bit tiring sometimes. So we were there with my little brother as well, and she asked him, "Do you want to come with us, or do you want to stay back and watch cartoons with your cousins?" And he opted for the cartoons. So he stayed back in Vancouver, and my mom, myself, and Dina Tarine, we traveled up to Sharanagati. Um, on the journey there, the road goes along the side of a river called the Thompson River, and it goes through beautiful. Oh, Edward knows all about this because this is your part of the world. Trying to find Edward on the screen. There you are. You know all about this. So we were driving up alongside the river, and we stopped a few times at some farm stands to buy some vegetables. It's a very, very fertile part of the world and a part of Canada. A lot of produce, fresh produce comes from that part of the world, from British Columbia, blueberries and all kinds of wonderful things. So for me, it was also my first time in that. I'd never been in that region, so everything was new. And when we got to Sharanagati, have you been there, Edward, before? I can't remember. Okay, I'm sure you'll get an opportunity at some point. When we got there, I was just wide-eyed because, I didn't know what to expect. And I kept saying to my mom, knowing that she's famous, and not only famous, but, worthy of so much respect. I didn't know how I should relate with her. should I'd been trained from childhood that when a holy person, a sadhu or a swami is there, you should immediately bow down to, put your head to the ground and offer your respects in that way, in a traditional way. It's known as offering pranam or dandavat pranam, sometimes it's called. But I was thinking, should I do that? She's not a swami. She's, many of my mom's friends from her younger years who were living in the ashram at that time, they're like aunties to me. So is she like an auntie or is she like a swami? I think that was the dichotomy. I couldn't figure out which one is it and how should I behave. I think I can't remember what my mom said, but she probably didn't feel concerned about it at all. I just wanted to do the right thing. So as we were coming up to the property where they lived, I could see a little sign saying, um, what did the sign say? Bhakti Kutir. It said Bhakti Kutir. Kutir means a place or like a haven, place where something is nurtured. Um, and Bhakti was the place. So that they had created this beautiful ashram. It was a cob house. For those of you that know what that is, cob house is made of earth and straw. It's a traditional building method. So they had, with the help of a lot of neighbors in the valley, they had built this beautiful ashram according to the principles of Vastu, which is the ancient Vedic science of architecture and energetics within that architecture. Like feng shui is, they're very closely related. So it had a very pleasing feeling to it. And as we approached, I could see uh, a fixture in the garden. It was like a feature rather. There were these beautiful stones, glossy stones that had been painted. In the middle, there was a big flat stone that said Lake of Vaishnava Jewels. And there was 26 stones all around on which she had painted in beautiful calligraphy. This was something she had studied in her college years formally. Um, Actually, with the same teacher that Steve Jobs, who founded Apple, he also um, studied with the same calligraphy teacher, which led to the development of the fonts that are used with Apple computers. Just a little trivia. But she had painted with beautiful calligraphy the 26 qualities or characteristics of a Vaishnava or lover of God. And so I was like, wow, it's so artistic, it's so beautiful and so thoughtful. And then as we approached the veranda of the house, I could see that the front door to the house was all decorated with stained glass. And at first, again, I thought it was like you can purchase these ready-made doors that have stained glass design on them. But then I noticed that there was a big tilak, the sign that Vaishnavas traditionally wear on their forehead with the tulsi leaf and the footprint of the Lord. That was in the center, and there were hands holding bunches of flowers. And I thought, okay, this doesn't look like something you can just buy from Home Depot or, one of these places. So later on, I learned that she had also made this. So we knocked on the door, and I was in that last minute panic of like, so what is it? Should I bow down or should I give her a hug or what should I do? And from inside the house, we heard Hari Bol. Hari Bol means praise the Lord. And the door flew open. And before I even had a chance to think about anything, this explosion of rose petals came out from behind the door and came onto us. She was throwing them on us to welcome us. And we immediately got pulled into this big embrace that was the most loving and beautiful, deep embrace I think I've ever experienced. Well, you can't really compare hugs, can you? Because there's all different kinds of hugs. But it was a very, very beautiful, beautiful hug. And then without saying much, which this is I found very striking, there wasn't really like initial small talk. She let us go. She took both of our hands and she pulled us before the altar and brought us before her altar, her shrine. where she worshipped her deities whose names were Radha, Banabihari. Um, the altar itself was extremely beautiful, and she had made beautiful stained glass design behind, and a whole archway with more stained glass with different quotes and mandalas. It was just stunning. Um, and then she served us a most delicious meal. And, I didn't mention that later in her life, she, published a best-selling cookbook called Lord Krishna's Cuisine. That is a classic. If you have never seen it, if you've never purchased it, you have to get it. It's uh, it's not only a masterpiece of Indian vegetarian cooking, and devotional cooking, but every recipe has anecdotes telling about how she learned it, who she learned it from, and just amazing stories. I actually used to read it even when I was a child. I used to just look through the pages and read the little stories before each recipe because they're just so interesting. And that was many, many years before I knew how to cook anything. So I highly recommend it. So I knew that also her cooking was extremely famous. She cooked personally for Prabhupada for many years, and her cookbook won the James Beard Award at the time, which was, I think it might have even been one of the first vegetarian books to win the cookbook of the year. And that the James Beard Awards are like the Oscars of the cookbook um, industry, cooking industry. So this was extremely prominent. I'm telling these things very briefly, and there's so much you could say about them. Even the story of how the cookbook came to be is just an incredible story. How she decided to name it Lord Krishna's Cuisine is another story. How the manuscript was stolen and she had to start all over again after years of research is another story. I told you it in a nutshell form there. But she cooked this wonderful meal, and we were just there for such a short time. It was actually less than 24 hours. But it was such a profound experience. And another thing that really touched me was how she made me feel. I was only 18. I think I might have actually even been 17 at the time. And I wasn't used to, you know, adults, especially people in a position of respect, taking an interest in what I had to say or asking me questions about spiritual things. I just assumed that, I know what I know, which is not very much, and they know everything. So why would they be asking me what I think about something? But they really took time to talk to me and ask me, what do you think about this? And do you think you would want to have a guru someday? And what do you think about that? And what would your concerns be? And we were having discussions, and everything that I would say, they would say, that's a great point, or that's very interesting. And I was like, oh, it made me feel like I had some thoughts that had some value. Not that my parents didn't make me feel that way, but parents, if you have nice parents, they usually want to make you feel that way. So then as you're getting older, you think, well, maybe it's just my parents, maybe they always think you're great because they're your child. But this left a real impression on me. And all in all, by the time that we were leaving, by the time that we were driving away, I was just so touched and moved by the experience that I said to my mom. Actually, I don't even remember if I said it out loud, but it was definitely something that my inner voice was saying, that what they're doing and what they're being, I want to try to do and be as they do. I'm interested in that. And that was ultimately quite a profound awakening for me, to see how people that had been practicing for their whole life had dug in such a deep way as to create a home environment that was really just radiating devotion, but in a way that was so approachable, so authentic, so inviting and welcoming for anybody. over the years, I visited them several times. I would stay with them sometimes. And I would see how anybody that walked in the door, no matter what their background, would feel welcomed, would feel seen and heard. And it was just so inspiring and instructive for me. So there's so much more I could share, but I just wanted to share a little bit, a few droplets, because it's her birthday today. And I can't, I don't think I can do some of the things I like to do. Sometimes on her birthday, I cook one of her recipes or a few of her recipes and, think about her in that way and offer my gratitude. But today is a very busy day, and I will be doing this event at Stanford this evening. Apparently, there's going to be 600 people there. So there's a lot to do, but I wanted to honor her by sharing a little bit. And I want to quickly ask if there's any questions or anything, but I am going to conclude in a moment because I'm also losing my voice a little bit. I can feel it even as I'm talking. So, yes. Himalata, thank you so much. Did she inspire you and encourage you to lead kirtan? Yes, she did. Um, she encouraged me a lot, but actually when I was around her, I rarely led kirtan, almost never. At that age and that time, I wasn't really singing much. Like I wasn't known for leading kirtan. I would play my violin in the kirtan, and she really loved um, she loved my violin playing, and she would always, encourage that. But I remember even one time I was in a kirtan at her home, at her ashram, and I suddenly had this surge of realization. It was so like intense all of a sudden. I experienced such a connection between ego and playing the instrument. And I felt suddenly so embarrassed and ashamed to be that my ego was so wrapped up in being this violin player and wanting people's appreciation and praise. And at that time I think the violin really was my voice because I was still quite shy, and that was how I made a contribution through that instrument. And so I put it down, and I didn't play for the rest of the kirtan because I thought that I'm somehow contaminating the kirtan in some way, but with this contribution. And later that night, she said, "What happened to your fiddle playing? You put your fiddle down. Why did you not continue?" And I said, "Oh, I wasn't feeling very well." And I felt shy to say, what I had been feeling. I can't remember if I later told her, but on another occasion, she asked me to lead kirtan in the morning when it was just the three of us doing morning prayers. And I felt so happy that she asked me, because then I realized later that there was an ego part of that too, that I wanted to show that I could do it, or that somehow I would be proving myself because she asked me to sing. And that also felt embarrassing later on. But it was the best kind of embarrassment, which I think is, the embarrassment that can happen with a teacher that truly loves you, or teachers, both of them gave me so much guidance. With a teacher that truly loves you, you can make mistakes because you know that they are there to encourage you, and they're not going to mock you for your frailties and your flaws. They're going to offer you insight and how to work with them and grow. So those times and many others. I mean, in fact, we can do another 3 or 4 sangas just about her and about all the things that I received and experiences that I've had. And if you appreciated hearing this today, do let me know, and I'd love to share more about her. There's something I want to show you, actually. Give me 1 second. I just remembered that I had this in the room. So this is a jar of jam or jelly that she made. And I don't want to open it because I'm not sure, like, if I, I guess I don't know. I mean, some of you might make jam. I don't know if it preserves forever if you don't open the seal. But you can see the beautiful label, handwritten label, Shri Shri Radha Banabihari Mandir, organic Rosa urcosa rose petal jelly. So this was made from rose petals from her. There was a big, big bush outside of their house, and she would make things with the petals. One time when I was staying with them, I had the job of picking off all the remaining rose petals from the bush. And then she had these beautiful screens, metal screens, and we laid out all the rose petals on the screens and dried them in the sun. And then she made an amazing sweet from sugar syrup, pistachios, cashews, and rose petals. And anybody that would come to her home, she would offer them some of this prasad that she had offered to the deities. Taryn, will you ever eat that jam? I know, I don't know what to do. I mean, not at this point, I'm like, is it still edible when it's been, in a jar for this long? I don't know, but I would love to take a taste, but then it will be gone forever. So right now it's just like it's almost like a little sacred object. Um, so many things I could share. But yeah, thank you so much for your encouragement. And Anapani, I agree. When you talk about a saintly person, I think it really is cleansing and purifying for the heart. Um, I want to show you her book actually before I go. This is a this is a newer printing of her book, The Art of Indian Vegetarian Cooking. That's so interesting, actually. I just noticed this. They put Lord Krishna's cuisine in small writing, and on the original printing, Lord Krishna's cuisine practically covered the entire book cover. And I think that might have been a marketing decision later on. She actually, so many people tried to discourage her from calling it Lord Krishna's cuisine because they said, it won't be relatable and, you should just kind of call it what the subheading is, the art of Indian vegetarian cooking. And she was adamant, no, it has to be Lord Krishna's cuisine because this is part of her devotional offering, devotional practice, cooking for Krishna. That's what she was doing. They weren't just random recipes. So many of them she learned from temple cooks. So she pushed for it, and then everybody ate their words when it won I can't remember what this acronym stands for, but it was James Beard and then this IACP Cookbook of the Year. So highly recommended. Many, many, many recipes and beautiful illustrations in here. And yeah, maybe we should do like a cooking Sanga one time and we can do cooking live. That would be fun. Or everybody can choose one recipe to cook and we can cook them at home and have a virtual feast. Um, but yeah, I would say that I'm definitely doing what I'm doing because of her in many ways. And she encouraged me. She encouraged me in ways that penetrated to a very deep level at a young age. And even though what I do looks different from what she did, the choices that I've made along this path might be different. We're in a slightly different world. Um, I still think about her with every sort of choice that I make, because her alignment to, you could say, true north. People speak about the North Star. Her alignment to serving her spiritual master and to serving the Lord was so deeply, deeply held. And so that acts like a star for me to guide me. And so I'm just truly indebted. And her wonderful companion, Dinatarine Devi, she lives in Florida. And I had the opportunity to visit her, so not last year, the year before, but she's still worshiping. Oh, the strangest thing happened when my husband and I visited her, actually. We came out of her house and we got into the car, and the Bluetooth in our car, if anything's connected to Bluetooth, it jumps onto it turns on automatically, and it plays from your phone whatever was previously playing. So we turned on the car, and suddenly the track on my album, the final track on my album, Like a River to the Sea, which is called Yamuna, it's a live recording of everybody singing when her ashes were being immersed in the Yamuna River in India. And it started playing, and I hadn't been listening to my album. I never put my album on. And it started playing on the audio, on the car stereo. And we were just like, what? I took a picture of the display, because I was like, this is so, I don't even know what word to use to describe it, but I took it as a blessing. So, okay, look at that. We almost did an hour Sangha anyway. Let me just see if there's any more questions. Thank you so much for your comments and encouragement. Narayani, amazing. What did you make? Tell us what you cooked. That's amazing, Anvesh. Yeah, top quality spices. Everybody would love to use better quality spices. That's such a beautiful offering. Okay, so I will leave it there for now. I know we didn't do kirtan, we normally do, but this is a different type of kirtan. When you speak about the glories of a devotee of the Lord, that's just as good and very pleasing to Krishna as well. So I look forward to seeing you all for the next. Ooh, sabji and shrikant. Amazing. Amazing. Hope it tastes delicious. I'm sure it does. I look forward to seeing you for the next Sangha. I can't remember what the date of it is, but I do know that we already marked it. I can look at my calendar very quickly just so that I can tell you. Um, oh, maybe it's not set actually. I think maybe we marked out like 4 months, and I think maybe this is our last month that we had marked out. So I still have to set the Sangha dates for June, but most likely it would be the second and the last weekend of June. But I just need to make sure that works fine. So I will drop all the info on the Patreon board, and look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. And I'll share the link for the book, Sachin. Of course, I'll share a few links when I post the recording for this. Thank you all. Thank you, Naina, for hosting, and see you very soon. Have a beautiful day.